God, is this the SmeshCast? I thought this was the handsome contest. Look at all these contestants. Look at these fellas. Look at these handsome men right here.
Well, speaking of handsome men, think about Paulo Costa, the most beautiful man on the planet, got his ass whooped last night. Israel Adesanya gets a second round knockout or TKO, I think, potentially. Who cares? He retains his middleweight crown in spectacular fashion.
How many belt defenses is this now? Is this 5? 4?
What?
No,
it's
2.
It's 2.
No, I'm way okay. I'm way ahead of myself.
It's 2 official, but if you ask Izzy, it's 3. He calls he says the Whitaker fight. He already had the belt. The Gastelum fight was when he won the belt, and the Whitaker fight was his first defense. So let's call it 3 for Izzy's sake, 2 for the official record books.
Right on. I mean, God, I don't see this man losing his belt anytime soon.
Well, let's hold our horses on that conversation. That's an awesome conversation. I really would like to have. Let's talk about the fight first and foremost. Israel Adesanya looked like he was not in danger once, right? He dictated the pace of that fight. He dictated the range like nobody else. And what it really came down to was what Izzy is, I think, the best in the UFC at, one of the best in the world in general, and that is the feints. He just had Paulo Costa fighting on every little movement he made. Little jump here, jump there. Paulo was jumping around. He could not at all get his own rhythm going. He couldn't at all get his own offense going.
Oh, he had no rhythm.
Fighting on the feints.
He threw how many punches in that fight? How many punches in that first round? I don't think he threw a single punch in that first round.
He barely threw anything because he couldn't. Every time he was about to go and set himself to throw a punch, he would fake him, he would freeze, he would stop it, and he would try to cut off the cage. And you would even see Izzy would walk backwards and then all of a sudden stop and feint, and Paulo would retreat immediately, go back to the middle of the cage. He realized every time that he was going to go and charge in, he was getting stung. And all that while he was trying to figure out a way in, Izzy was just chopping out at that leg. That lead leg was getting fucked up. You could see
that thing was beat.
Oh, it was so bad.
Hey, here I have a question.
Yeah.
That I don't know. Maybe one of you guys do, because I see it all the time, and I feel like at this point in my watching fighting career, I'll call it tentatively. What are the suction cups? That's like a weight cutting thing.
No,
what's going on there?
It's just a general therapy thing.
Yeah, it's a muscle recovery. So it breaks the blood capillaries on the surface, and then blood flow to the area and helps the muscles recover faster.
Okay, neat.
Yeah, in general, like anything that the blood carries nutrients, so blood is essential for healing. So if you can do something that'll cause some slight damage in the area, blood will rush to heal that, and it'll heal everything else in the area as well.
Right. So is it any kind of my assumption watching those leg kicks was this is like a potential weak point. Is that the case? Or is it just is that just it just leaves a cosmetic mark that really doesn't mean anything? You shouldn't really take it to mean anything.
No, yeah, it's just that Paulo was using it for recovery. It's not like a target or anything. But okay. I think the marks that were distinctly on his leg, a lot of people were saying, look at how bad Izzy's bruising him up, and he was for sure. It was definitely red, but the distinct cut marks people thought were the actual marks where he was kicking.
See, that's why I asked, because I saw the cut marks behind before those leg kicks started to land, and I think that's just, you got to wonder whether or not that is something like a bruise or something but all right. But either way though, he was certainly beating up that leg regardless.
And the targeting on it, the accuracy was amazing, right? He wasn't even hitting, he never almost at all hit the thigh. He wasn't really hitting the bottom part of that leg. Every single time it was that space, the top part of that shin, right around the very bottom of the knee and behind the knee. That's the area of the leg that's the least protected and that you can cause the most damage. And you can see it was really just messing with Paulo Costa's rhythm. It was hurting him. He couldn't get in. And at one point, you saw he was just growing. Basically, as a course of the fight, as the fight progressed, basically Costa was just getting more and more hesitant. He looked almost scared by the end of it. To say, it sounds weird to say, but he almost seemed just scared to do anything, because every time he did anything, he paid for it.
There was one moment during the second round where I distinctly remember seeing a look on, it was like a split second, but there was this look on Izzy's face where he was just staring at Costa, and he was just, the look said it all. It said, I have you, I know exactly what you're going to do next, and
you know what it means?
You've got no chance. I'm
you know
It was a look that said,
it means checkmate.
Yes, exactly. He was telling him, I am playing with you at this point. It's my fight. And then, Costa, he's a tough bastard, but you can tell, it was getting to him. And that head kick in the second round, after that, there was no doubt he was frightened of Israel. And with good reason, clearly.
Yeah, and then every time Costa would try to come in with a flurry, you saw, I think it was just twice, maybe 3 times that they had a bit of a faster flurry, right? It was Izzy just with those one punch, those quick jabs, those quick leg kicks. And then they had a couple of those times where they got close. There were a couple times actually Costa did get him against the fence. And what Izzy's game plan clearly was don't stand in that mid-range. So he immediately, when Costa got too close, he just jumped right in for the double underhooks, turned around and got right back to the middle. That was his panic. That was his escape route. Or he would go out. What I found really interesting, and this was kind of the opposite of the Dominic Reyes-Jan Blachowicz fight, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Costa, what he likes to do when he gets you against the fence, when you try to circle out to your left or to Costa's right, he'll throw that big right body kick to try to cut you off. And what Izzy did is he backed to the right, but also backwards a little bit. And he did actually get right into that kick, but the way that Costa would land after throwing that kick, he wasn't ready to chase Izzy. So Izzy might eat the kick. He was also ready for it, so he knew what was coming. He wouldn't eat it fully, but then Costa would have no follow-up, and Izzy would just dance right out. He just understood the distance so well. And in those couple flurries that he had, he would go body and then head, and he just punished Costa. Costa wouldn't touch him, and he ended up knocking him out with the exact same punch that he knocked Robert Whittaker out, where he leaned way back to the right, and he had that big left hook that caught him on the chin. In this case, it caught him a bit more on the temple near the forehead, and it put Costa down. Costa might not have been fully out, but then that ground and pound really punished him.
He was not defending in any really intelligent way. He wasn't advancing position.
I just think that in some fights, you would see the fighters try to really fight back, maybe even get mad at that stoppage. But I think the reason you didn't is because Costa just realized how outclassed he was. He didn't feel like he had a chance to win at that point in the fight, and he just wanted out, and he was hurt bad. So
I've got to imagine, like, being at the level of Costa, and Costa is an extremely highly skilled fighter. I mean, just to have all that confidence, and then you walk in there with Israel, and then there's just something about the way he's moving, the way that he is staring into you, the way he is reading everything you do, that I guess it's just, if you know, you know. And Costa knew very quickly, any opening that he had, it really wasn't going to pay off for him. It wasn't going to work. He didn't stand a chance.
Yeah. It's weird to see somebody with the body composition of like Costa or Romero getting TKO'd, because they're like, it seems a little bit like common sense. They're like, oh, they're just so big and bulky that like it's not possible for them to be knocked out. Like they're just too strong. But I mean, Izzy just looked phenomenal, and like it was kind of sweet to see him sort of get knocked down like that.
It reminded me almost like a kickboxing version of like a jiu-jitsu match, where you talk about those guys, and Paulo Costa, if I'm going to make this metaphor, has been competing against black belts, top level black belts all his life, and he's been destroying them, and he has all this confidence. And then he walked in there and he rolled with the Gracie, and he realized that there are levels to this. And when you roll with these guys, you've rolled with black belts, but this is something else, and they have control over everything that you do, and they see everything that you're trying to set up, and they've set up 4 things already to defend against it, and to attack and penalize you for it, and take advantage of you in every little thing that you do. And you just realize after a very short amount of time that there's just nothing that you're ever going to be able to do against this person. It's just not going to happen. And it was just that kind of a fight.